Hi there everyone and welcome back to another video on the Toon Review YouTube channel. My name's Paul, thank you so much for tuning in. There's been some news breaking this afternoon regarding Newcastle United, so I thought I'd cover in a video for you. And it involves really Newcastle United making a bold statement saying that they are not going to sanction any sales of their top stars in the summer. I think it's great news for Newcastle United fans. We'll have a look at it. It's an article from Craig Hope. It's a really good article and should put Newcastle United fans at rest about any of their top stars leaving in the summer. We've also got news on Sven Botman. Chelsea and Liverpool seem to have entered the race to sign the centre-back that Newcastle United were heavily linked with. And Jacob Murphy is now being touted for an England call-up. So would you agree with that if that happened? But we'll pop into that a little bit later on. I want to start with Craig Hope and his article regarding the non-sanction of deals for Newcastle United. Basically, the headline says Newcastle will not sanction sales of their top stars even if they fail to qualify for the Champions League, as the Magpies expect to show renewed ambition in the transfer market this summer. So, again, people were thinking, everybody was thinking, me included, that if we didn't qualify for the Champions League, the likes of Isak, Bruno, etc., would be heavily linked to other clubs and possibly move on given where they want to play eventually. But Newcastle United are expected to be active in the transfer window this time around in the summer. PSR has been sorted out. Newcastle United apparently have money to spend, and that can only encourage us as fans. And the fact that we want to hold on to our star players. They're under contract. We don't have to sell them. If we say no, then they won't go anywhere. They are under contract. And I know people will come and say, well, look what player power is these days. Player power will determine whether a player will stay at the club. You don't want an unhappy player at your football club. And to a certain degree, that is true. But where Newcastle United are heading, I think these players, you know, if the club have told them they're going nowhere, then they're going nowhere. So they just have to get their heads down and perform for Newcastle United. But this is what it says. It says they will not allow the best players to leave if they miss out on the Champions League this season, sending a clear and robust message to rival clubs, intermediaries, and their own dressing room. After a run of 3 defeats in 4 Premier League games, Eddie Howe's side have fallen out of the top 5 places that will qualify for Europe's top competition. And this has given rise to fresh talk in football circles of interest from the likes of Alexander Isak, Anthony Gordon, and Bruno Guimarães. Now, they are the usual 3 that keep getting mentioned. If we don't reach the Champions League, these 3 will be off, blah, blah, blah. But making this statement, as Craig's pointed out there in his report, that has just put a message out to everybody that we're not a stepping stone club. And if you watched the show this morning, we talked about that, about the disrespect that people were showing Newcastle United in the media, and how some reporters still, and pundits, still see us as a stepping stone club, which we're clearly not. And this is a statement of intent from Newcastle United. It then says, however, because the club will enter the summer in a strong position from a PSR perspective and have all of their most valuable players on long-term contracts, there is no appetite or need to let them leave, should they ask to do so. Rather, it is wish and intention of the club to keep the bulk of the squad together and add it to before next season, regardless of whether they're playing in European football. For any players who have an ambition to play in the Champions League, the message is clear. You will have to earn it here. That is brilliant, because I'll tell you why. We had a lot of supporters on the show last night saying about these players and their attitudes to the performance against Manchester City, etc., which was terrible. The whole thing about Saturday's performance was just rubbish from the start. It was terrible to watch. It was terrible attitude, and there was a lot of fallout from it. However, a lot of fans said that when we were saying about losing players because of the Premier League form, a lot of fans turned around and said, well, hang on a minute. These players want to play in the Champions League, so earn it. Get there with the club you're with, rather than saying, oh, if you don't make it, I'm going to jump ship to a team that is in the Champions League. And that is a fair comment. It really is a fair comment. And, having time to think about it, perfectly agree with that. If you want Champions League football, go out there and earn it, and don't put in performances like you did against Manchester City. Because performances like that, and against Bournemouth and against Fulham, etc., they are not going to get you in the top 5 this season. And why should we turn around as a football club and say, oh, yeah, you can go and play Champions League football when you haven't earned it for the club that you're at? It's an interesting talking point, and Newcastle United seem to be taking a big stance on this. The club's hierarchy have been left frustrated by a drop-off in performance, especially league defeats to Bournemouth, Fulham and Manchester City, especially when the same players produced a Herculean effort over 2 legs against Arsenal. Now, that's exactly what I was talking about yesterday in the live show yesterday morning. Why are we seeing such a difference in performances in the Premier League to what we are in the Carabao Cup? That makes no sense at all. Howe will no doubt let his players know that anyone with one eye on the final against Liverpool on March the 16th risks losing their place in the team. Now, he says we'll no doubt let them know. I'm not convinced of that because I haven't seen anything so far to tell me that Eddie has a real ruthless streak in him to leave certain players out. Because the likes of Fabian Schär and Joe Willock do not deserve to start on Sunday against Forest. And if they do, then I will be asking questions because he has to put his foot down now and make sure that these players know that they have to be in top form in the Premier League. Forget the cup final until it's the week of the cup final. And until that happens, you concentrate on your Premier League. Eddie Howe has made a point of saying the Premier League is the bread and butter until the cup final. He said that after the game against Manchester City. So it talks about Callum Wilson, Harvey Barnes returning, Botman and Joe Linton due back shortly. So we are getting the squad back in time for the final. In the meantime, there are 4 league games that will go a long way to determining whether Newcastle United can recover the top 5 position, which they sit 2 places and 2 points beyond. Securing a Champions League return would go a long way to placating those stars who, Howe admits, were unsettled by goings on at the club last summer when all the PSR issues were going on. Now, after 3 transfer windows without a first-team signing, several exits, weakening the squad, as well as no tangible progress in 3 years of the Saudi ownership on a new stadium or training ground, etc., questions continue to be asked in the dressing room over the direction of the club and its speed of travel. So we knew that the players would ask questions. You know, the players that have been promised certain things by the club or where the club was headed, you can understand that there'll be a bit of frustration in there saying, well, you know, we were promised this and promised that when we signed, but we're not seeing anything in the transfer windows to boost that progress or anything like that. But I think, to be honest, players should understand about the PSR situation as well, as frustrating as it is. But with the announcements due to those off-field projects and the club having endured what Howe calls short-term pain for the long-term gain, with regards to their transfer activity, there is an anticipation that this summer will signal a period of renewed ambition. That is why the club will resist any attempt to sign their top stars and will let it be known that they expect them to be part of an effort to qualify once more for the Champions League, be that this season or beyond. So it seems like Newcastle United are taking a very hard stance on everything now, and in my opinion, rightly so. I think it's a fantastic article to read, and really gives you a boost and an idea of where Newcastle United still feel that they are. The hierarchy clearly understand that they are not a stepping stone club anymore, despite what has been said in all the media garbage that we've talked about and has been written about over several months. Players expecting to leave, or, you know, if we don't do this or we don't do that, players will leave. I think this puts a real point on top of it, saying, hang on a minute, Newcastle United have these players under contract and will not sanction any deals. So if they don't sanction any deals, it may cause player unrest. That always seems to happen. But if these players have the ambition to be in the Champions League, that's why they signed these long-term deals with Newcastle United. They signed deals knowing that they were playing for Newcastle United for several years. But they've got to earn that spot in the Champions League as well. And, you know, given the performance that we saw the other day at the Etihad and recent Premier League performances, that isn't going to happen. But there is time for it to happen, and I think it will happen. But I was absolutely delighted to read that. Absolutely delighted to read that. And people start banging on about Craig Hope again. But listen, Craig Hope's come out with some great stuff recently that has all panned out to be true. So whatever you think of Craig Hope, he's done really well with his reporting lately, and I'm fully backing him with this one. I really hope that Newcastle United keep a very strong stance on their players. Sven Botman little bit of news on him. He is hopefully going to be back for the Nottingham Forest game. Now, whether he'll come straight into the side or not, I don't know. I think, everything will probably be confirmed by Eddie on Friday in his press conference. Of course, we're only at Tuesday. There's a long way to go before the game as yet. So there's plenty of time yet for players to, pick up new knocks or actually get fit again. So it's not a long-term problem, of course, with Sven Botman. A little bit of pain, but no, he's not far away. Now, as I say, does he come straight back into the side? I probably doubt it. I want to see Emil Kraft come in if Botman's not going to be ready for the game to start. I want to see Botman in for Fabian Schär. I've already said that. I want to see Miley in for Willock. Joe Linton is still a couple of weeks away, apparently, so he's not going to be available for the Forest game. Now, as we spoke about last night in our summer 2025 window, that we were looking at what the possibilities of things changing around in the summer and the squad being overhauled. There was interest, of course, in Bournemouth's Dean Hyson, the centre-back, the 19-year-old centre-back, who, of course, has a release clause of 50 million quid. Now, Newcastle United were reported over the last couple of days to be very, very interested in bringing the centre-back to St James's Park. But now Liverpool and Chelsea have stepped in. And, of course, this always seems to happen. We seem to be the first to be linked with these players, and then suddenly other clubs come in. Now, obviously, as I keep saying, we are shopping with the very big boys now, and we have to compete. Now, we don't have Champions League at the moment. We don't have anything that. So the guys like Paul Mitchell, etc., have to sell Newcastle United and have to sell it well in order for these players to come and join. £50 million is a lot of money, but he's 19-year-old, he's a brilliant defender, and he could be, him and Botman could be the centre-back pairing for years to come for Newcastle United and bring us the success we so badly crave for. But Liverpool, of course, they always seem to be interested in anybody we're interested in, as do Chelsea, as do Manchester City. But at the minute, Chelsea and Liverpool are keeping an eye on him as well. But he is expected to leave in the summer. He is expected to leave Bournemouth. Doesn't matter where Bournemouth will finish this season. I know they're having a really, really good campaign, but he is expected to leave at the end of the season. Somebody will trigger that release clause because, it'll not be just English clubs that are interested in him. I'm sure the Europeans are looking at him as well. And finally, Jacob Murphy is being touted for an England call-up. Now, we've mentioned this Billy especially, actually, during a lot of our live shows, has mentioned this on numerous occasions, that he thinks Jacob Murphy should be called into the England squad because of his form this season. Please do forget Saturday, because we're not talking about Saturday's performance at all here. Saturday was a game that we will just quickly forget, but his form this season has been nothing short of brilliant. And for me, when you see certain players being called into the England squad from various clubs who just seem to be having a purple patch, Murphy's continually played well all season. And you have to ask the question, why? Why shouldn't he be included in the squad? I'm not saying put him in the first 11, but into the England setup itself, I don't think is a bad idea at all. I think he's deserved it. He's played his heart out this season. He's worked his arse off. He's had so many goal contributions this season as well. He has to stand and be noticed. He has to be noticed by Tuchel and his staff. Whether he is or not, we'll just have to wait and see. But what do you reckon? Do you reckon that Murphy is due an England call-up? Would you call him up if you were England manager? Looking at his form this season? It's certainly an interesting question to ask. But as usual, leave a comment about all the points that I've brought up in the video, guys. And thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed the video. And of course, if you're new to the channel, help us towards 36,500 subscribers by clicking that button. It is free to do so. It's a fantastic community here on the Toon Review. And you'll be part of something very, very special that is rapidly growing. So thank you very much for watching, guys. We'll see you very, very soon. Take care.